we are at day 2 of the BCLC, Added Value in Emerging Markets Conference, and we're very fortunate to have Jeff Peterson with us, who has a great title, the Director of Innovation and Strategy for the General Mills Foundation. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so what is a Director of Innovation and Strategy? Do you just go around thinking of things?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
doing
I feel like I should have a cape, you know, some kind of, crest on my chest. No, it's to General Mills' credit, you're starting to see traditional foundations, corporate foundations and community foundations really embrace this idea of new approaches to basically give away money. And because it's not just about giving away money anymore. Companies like General Mills and a lot of our colleagues here at this BCLC conference are realizing that as companies, we have many assets to give to the world to advance both social change and also, to recognize those intersections where, community benefit can also realize commercial benefit. And so, so the area that I'm fortunate to lead is rather global in nature, looking for opportunities for our foundation to impact in all the communities that we operate in and that we don't even operate in potentially. And then innovation, looking for those areas where we can really add value, again, beyond just the checks that we write. So when we look at our volunteers, look at our intellectual capital, creative capital, and to advance what we think is not just a difference to make, but our difference that we can make.
Is this approach relatively new for General Mills?
It is, yep. I would say that the formalization of it is new, but I think it's kind of like sociology, where you have sort of theories and terms that get sort of placed on behaviors that have been in place for years. Our foundation has been around for 50 years, and we've always had a focus. For example, we've always had a focus on food, which makes sense as a food company, but we never have really articulated the sort of the strategy of what we now call our food-based social change model, which, yes, definitely deals with getting food to people who need it. So a lot of our hunger alleviation programs, which again we've been doing for years, but we never really spoke of or thought of our hunger alleviation work across a spectrum, which says, yes, it's important to get food to people who need it. But then it's also important to help communities develop more sustainable kind of food solutions so that they can grow their own food, or they can they can package their own food if they're a small food processor in Tanzania. And then once they get the food, they can sustain the food. Then we move to sort of a third stage of how the food is built. What's the nutritional value of the food? So that's where we do a lot of work with here domestically in the States with programs like WIC, the American Dietetic Association, to make sure food is being built well. And then finally, the fourth sort of stage on our spectrum is integration into a healthy lifestyle. So how's food part of a healthy lifestyle? So fitness and other things that really speak more holistically to the role food plays in your life. So that's kind of, so that hadn't been formalized per se, but has always kind of been part of the operation of our foundation. But now it's kind of like, when you put it out there and say, okay, this is what we stand for. Now it helps folks outside our walls, and it helps our folks inside our walls to make progress.
You use the word sustainable and sustainability. That to a lot of people that's a buzzword. Others say it's overused, but what does sustainability mean to General Mills, particularly the foundation? Yeah,
and that's a great point, and I think it is one of those words that, especially a few years ago, it was at risk of being hijacked as an exclusively environmental kind of domain. And at General Mills and in the foundation, we really look at sustainability in the really the most kind of agnostic sense of the word, which is just self-perpetuating. So when we think sustainable, for example, we think of the families, and I'll get even more personal. So the mother of a household who may be, using their family's local food shelf to keep food on the table, and looking at sustainable solutions for that mother, whether it's getting a job, growing her own food for her family, and looking at how she, that mother, can not only continue to probably be a beneficiary of our philanthropy, of our benevolence, you know, if you will, but what can we do to help her also become an agent of the change that we seek to make? And so the more skills she can acquire, the more opportunities she can be given to, you know, as I say, you know, get a job or figure out ways to, you know, become more sort of self-sustaining almost.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess sustainability is almost at our level with the work that we do directed at families. It's almost like self-sustainability. What are we doing to empower kind of heads of households to thrive?
Yeah, and so sustainability is way more than environment. Sustainability is essentially almost a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
You've got some programs that are specific, like Join My Village. That's a program of General Mills Foundation.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
And it's a neat program, and it's actually a good example of both innovation and sustainability. A couple of years ago, General Mills and our nonprofit partner CARE, who we'd been working with for a while, came up with an idea to better engage sort of moms and dads in this country who by and large are very blessed with the lives that they're able to lead in terms of their resources, their access to resources. Not that we don't have challenges here in this country, but relatively speaking, we are operating from positions of strength. So it came up, and yet there are areas of the world, in places like Malawi, that where people don't have those opportunities, specifically women and girls. And so we came up with this idea called Join My Village, which was an online way to engage, you know, moms and girls here in the United States with to help provide opportunities for women and girls in Malawi through nothing more than learning about the issues and clicking. We call it a click to commit model. So basically General Mills and our partner Merck put philanthropic dollars on the table. We say, you know what, we want to give away $1 million. This last year we said $900,000. So in 2011 we said we want to give away $900,000. And we want you, mom, to help us do that. So go online, go to joinmyvillage.com, maybe watch a video of Alice, who was a schoolgirl that we followed all through 2011, and check in with Alice and see how she's doing in school. And the more videos you watch, the more money we'll give away. So it's kind of a click, you click, we commit. Now we also invite folks to donate, you know, so if they want to actually, you know, give $10, we'll match that as well. But what makes Join My Village, I think, unique is that it really is helping that individual, you know, and really inviting sort of whether you call them our consumers or our citizens to participate in the change that we seek to make. You know?
So a partnership between for-profit companies,
Yep.
such as yourself and Merck, with an NGO like CARE, gets funding and other resources directly to the bottom of the pyramid.
Yep. And it's something that, quite frankly, and everybody here at this conference knows, I mean, both Merck and General Mills could just be writing a check to CARE to get the work done.
Yep.
And that is what traditional corporate philanthropy is, how it's operated for the last 50 years. But we really believe that, back to sustainability, that the only sustainable change is going to happen is when folks that are walking our streets and putting, you know, food on their own tables, you know, here realize that they can play a role. And even if it's just in being more aware of, you know, the connection that, you know, their daughter, as a 12-year-old living in, you know, Annandale, Minnesota, can have to a 12-year-old somebody's daughter living in Malawi. You know, we just believe that that's really when sustainable change happens. Is when
we're going to get back to the being more aware in just a few minutes, but I want to get into Champions for Health Kids.
Yeah,
that's another program of the General Mills Foundation. Sounds very interesting.
Yeah. So back to that when I was talking about that food spectrum, you know, hunger, sustainability, nutrition, and fitness. The further along you get on that spectrum, when you start talking about lifestyles, General Mills, and this is another good example of something that was developed before that spectrum was formalized. But back in 2002, General Mills worked with the American Dietetic Association and the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports to develop Champions for Healthy Kids, which is basically a grants program for grassroots organizations in the United States that had programming for youth that had both a fitness and a nutrition component. And today, unfortunately, here now almost 10 years later, the issue of childhood obesity and health it's ubiquitous. I mean, everyone's aware of it, everyone is programming against it and trying to combat it. Back in 2002, it was really at the beginnings of those conversations. And so it was something that, back in 2002 we started. We're 10 years in now, and we're actually just now in the process of kind of not revamping, but focusing our efforts more, because so many others, I mean, the First Lady, every company here, I'm sure, has some kind of, health initiative addressing obesity in this country, and we are excited to focus our efforts really back on the family and recognizing that our nation's young people are only going to get healthy when the whole family is involved and can help them get healthy.
Speaking of involvement, something else that you do as the Director of Innovation and Strategy, that great title that I absolutely love, is you work with General Mills employees around the world in global citizenship, global participation. How does that work?
We have a great, like a lot of companies here, we have a very engaged employee base. We have about 82% of our employees here in the United States volunteer. And we are we're just right now in the process of assessing what that global number is. We have about 30,000 employees across the globe. And they're all, living and working in their respective communities, and they are just these, wonderful citizens of the world. And so we're very excited to be here for the launch of the International Volunteer Corps, because what I see that as, and what General Mills has demonstrated of late, is recognizing that the hours our volunteers spend, all of the hours are volunteering. An hour of volunteerism is a good hour, but an hour of what we call skill-based volunteerism, so you're an accountant and applying your trade now to a nonprofit, helping poverty level households get their tax,
well, if they get their finances
or something like that.
If they're able to,
exactly.
to not put money under their mattress, but if they're able to find a banking system.
Exactly. So again, as I said earlier, looking at ways that we as a company, rich with assets, financial, human, creative, intellectual, how can we not just make a difference, but our difference? And so we're very excited about the International Volunteer Corps here.
What I'm hearing from you then is that philanthropy has really changed.
Yeah.
Corporate philanthropy has really changed. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, it is, or it has, and it is. I mean, that's what I think is exciting, is that it continues to change. I mean, think of, even going back to German Village just for a second, 2 years ago when that concept was even, developed, social media wasn't even really around. And so, and so now that has accelerated programs like German Village to levels that we never imagined 2 years ago. So I think what's imperative for philanthropists, corporate philanthropists, or anybody working in this space of CSR, social change, whatever we want to call it, is to really operate with a sort of market mentality, and continue to be aware of not only where the need is, because there's, unfortunately there's going to be need all over the world every day, every day of the week, every week. But a market mentality of what are the best ways to administer your theory for change. So whether that's online, whether that's in collaboration with companies that are here at this conference, whether it's new research that you're funding to advance something more intellectually. So it's a very exciting time.
To a large extent, you're asking not only your employees, but you're asking the general public to participate. To help in the global change that some very responsible companies are trying to have happen. How can people be more aware of the programs that you have, of the programs that other companies have? How can they be aware that change actually can happen?
Yeah, and this is where not to minimize or get too specific in the answer, but I do think what social media has taught all of us over the last 18 months is that and we've actually sort of really tested some of these sort of cliches or trite terminology in business over the last few years of like transparency. You know, everyone's talking about transparency for the last 20 years. Well, now it is transparent. Now it actually is like we're calling the ball on that. And I think it's very exciting for folks in my line of work that have, you know, philanthropy has probably been a little bit more mysterious for consumers in the past because it's kind of, how does that happen? How do grants get written and then something like I don't get it, you know, versus, hey, a new package of, you know, a new design of Cheerios is on the shelf. Like I see that, you know, I understand that. And so I think what things like social media have done is it's given folks like us, folks who are here at this conference, the opportunity to tell their story, which I know is another cliche, but literally tell their story. I mean, you know, design a Facebook page and get your theory for change, get what your mission is out into the world, and then look at your employees. You know, all of us here at this conference have thousands of employees working all over the world. You know, leverage those, you know, human resources to help tell your story, and it really is. It's the truest, I think, most authentic representation of who you are as a company. What's imperative then is that you have a story, that you actually have a point of view, you know, beyond the, yep, we give away this much money.
And then those stories get told and distributed in many ways, whether it's television or social media or in many other vehicles. Okay, we've talked about the International Business Corps, but what I want to do now is look 10 years down the road. You're still doing your work as Director of Innovation and Strategy. Who knows, there may be even a more wonderful title at that time. But you're 10 years down the road and you're looking back. How'd you do?
I think that's a great question. You know, it's hard to say. Here's what I think. In 10 years from now, we will be even better at measuring our impact. Not just General Mills Foundation, but everybody here. I think what's exciting about CSR in general right now, and a lot of the metrics that are being introduced, a lot of these scorecards that companies are developing. I know there's the CSR global map that the BCLC is introducing at this conference as well. Those are all, I see, so noble almost efforts to do a better job of actually tracking and then inspiring more action, sort of kind of efficient action in this space. I think in 10 years we will know even more as to not only what we have measured, but what were the right things to measure, you know? And I think right now we're measuring everything, which is great. It's like let's get a sense for like who's all at the dinner party. I think in 10 years we'll really know which were those conversations, you know, that we've been monitoring over the last 10 years, were the ones that affected the most sustainable change, not just numbers.
Good deal. Jeff Peterson, thank you very much.
Thanks.